The transmission came in broken, and what we could make out was bad enough. Bravo Element 12 personnel. No casualties yet, but the road north is mined and the tree line east is hot. No way out by land, requesting extract. Any boat element, do you copy? 12 of us, crouched in sawgrass on a dark riverbank, listening to our own voices come back at us over the radio. Sergeant First Class Doyle keyed the handset twice and said what we were all thinking. Nobody's sending boats up this stretch. Not at night. He was not being pessimistic. He was being accurate. The Malaco River channel, between Waypoint Amber and the Southerner Bend, was 2 kilometers of black water with both banks contested. Command had called it impassable by watercraft after dark. That was the assessment, written in black ink, posted in the operations tent. We had all read it. Boats were logistics. Boats were resupply and ferry runs and moving gear up from the staging base when the road was open. Boats were not combat. We had said that ourselves, more than once, about the small craft platoon attached to our forward element. Said it in the mess hall. Said it loud enough for them to hear. I had said it directly to her face. Her name was Lieutenant Calloway, and she ran 2 Mark 6 patrol boats and a rib out of a sandbagged cut in the South Bank. She was 26 years old and had a coxswain's instinct I would not recognize until the night it saved my life. She was compact, quick-moving, and quiet. The kind of quiet that does not mean nothing is happening. When I passed her boat pen 3 days before the mission, I told my squad leader the boats were about as useful as a screen door, that the whole small craft platoon was there to move 8 gear and stay out of the way of the people doing the actual fighting. He laughed. She heard every word through the canvas wall of the maintenance bay, standing 6 feet from us with a grease rag in her hand and her back turned. She did not respond. She went back to work on the port engine of her lead Mark 6 and waited for the night that would settle it. The radio crackled again at 2,217 hours. Bravo Element, be advised, command has no ground route cleared. Air assets are weather grounded. You are on your own. Doyle set the handset down. Nobody said anything. The sawgrass moved in the current draft off the water. Somewhere south, a single burst of automatic fire walked across the opposite bank and went quiet. The men around me were checking their magazines without being told to. The reflex of people who have just done the arithmetic and come up short. Then we heard the engine, low, controlled, running without lights. The sound of a hull moving with intention rather than speed. Someone who knew water was reading it by throttle feel and by ear. A shape materialized out of the dark 40 meters upstream. The rib, low in the water, fenders in, the bow barely kissing the current. No running lights, no searchlight. Just the boat and the river and the quiet. Lieutenant Calloway was on the console. She had a rifle slung across her chest and a headset on. She put the bow into the bank without a sound. I count 12, she said, low and even. Get in. Doyle stared at her. The channels held both sides. I know. Command said no boat transit after dark on this stretch. I know what command said. She did not raise her voice. You have roughly 4 minutes before that South Bank position corrects its range. Get in or don't, your call. We got in. What happened next I have tried to describe to people who were not there, and I have never quite found the right words for it. It is not that it was fast, it was that it was precise. She brought the throttle up in a smooth curve, not the full-bore sprint I expected, but a controlled run that kept us below the noise threshold that would have lit up the east bank. She knew the current was setting left toward a gravel shelf. She compensated before the boat told her to. A slight starboard correction on the wheel that kept us out of the shallows without slowing our speed. I watched her hands on the console. They were absolutely still except for the corrections, which were small and early, and always right. The first contact came at roughly the 400-meter mark. A muzzle flash from the east bank, then 2 more. The shots went high. They had our sound before they had our shape, and the night and the low profile of the rib bought us a half-second before the targeting corrected. Calloway did not flinch, did not accelerate blindly. She cut the throttle to idle, let the boat drift right in a controlled yaw, and dropped us into the shadow of an overhanging cutbank. She held us there against the current with the engine barely turning, the bow angled just enough to keep us from swinging broadside. We sat motionless for 40 seconds while the fire swept upstream, probing for a silhouette that was no longer where it had been. Then, without a word, she brought the throttle back up, swung the bow south, and we moved again. She did not take the direct line. She knew the river. She ran us along the inside of a bend where the water is fastest and the banks angle away, a natural dead zone for enfilading fire, and she held us. In that corridor through the next 300 meters, while Doyle's radio came back to life with command, asking for a status update he could not give because we were moving too fast and too quietly to spare the attention. A second burst of fire hit near the southern marker, round skipping the surface 30 meters off our port side, and she held her course without a flinch, letting the bend geometry work, and the rounds fell behind us, and then there was only the engine note and the black water sliding past. We cleared the southern bend at 2,239 hours. All 12 of us. She put the rib onto the south bank staging area and killed the engine. We came off the gunwales in a mess, some of us on hands and knees, one man down with a splinter wound from the hull where a round had skipped close. She was already off the console, already pulling a first aid pouch from her vest, already moving toward the casualty before most of us had both feet on solid ground. "Lie flat," she said, "left side. Let me see it." She worked on him for 6 minutes, clean, methodical, the hands of someone who had cross-trained because she drove a boat into dangerous water and understood she might need to do this someday. When she had the bleeding controlled, she stood, stripped her gloves, and turned back toward the river. "I need to go back," she said. Doyle caught her arm. "You just came through that channel once." I left a Mark 6 holding south of Waypoint Amber. 2-man crew, they're exposed. She looked at him steadily. "I need to go back." He let go of her arm. She took the rib back north at 2,251 hours, with 2 of her sailors and no passengers to slow her. We tracked her by radio from the staging area. The east bank opened up again at the 400-meter mark. Same position as before, better adjusted, and I listened to her engine note change in the darkness. She was varying her speed in short, irregular bursts, making herself unpredictable, refusing to give the position a rhythm to lead. One of the men next to me said quietly that whoever was driving that boat knew exactly what they were doing. He did not know it was her. None of us had caught a clear look at her rank in the dark, and that detail would not have mattered to us 3 days ago even if we had. The radio went quiet for 11 minutes. No transmission, no update. Doyle held the handset and said nothing. The rest of us stood at the edge of the cut in the dark and waited. And the waiting was the kind that brings a man face to face with what he actually believes. I had said the boats were not real combat. Standing in that silence, I understood the full weight of how wrong I had been, and I had nothing to do with the knowledge except hold it. She was back on the south bank at 23 and 18 hours with her 2 sailors and the stranded Mark 6 crew, 4 more people she had gone back for and brought home. She had taken 2 hull strikes on the return run. We could see the entry points above the waterline when someone finally pointed a red lens light at the stern. She had not mentioned them. She was already working through her post-run check, bow to stern, methodical. The operation commander, Colonel Hadassah, had come down from the command post when the radio traffic told him what had happened. He waited at the edge of the cut while she finished her walk-around. She acknowledged him with a glance and kept working. When she finally turned, the whole staging area had gone still. Every man there was watching. Hadassah was not a man who saluted casually. He had been in this theater for 2 years and had formally decorated exactly 1 person in the field in that time. He came to full attention now, crisp, unhurried, no theater in it, and he rendered a full-hand salute. "Lieutenant," he said, "that was the finest piece of boat handling I have ever seen under fire. You have command of this waterway. Whatever you need, it is yours, my word." She returned the salute. She did not smile, did not glance around to see who was watching. She said, "Request a fuel resupply before 0400, sir. I want to run reconnaissance on the north bend before first light. You'll have it." She nodded once, turned back to her boat, and went back to work. I stood there on that bank with 11 other men who had called her the ferry driver, and not one of us said a word. Doyle, who had questioned her in the sawgrass, who had put his hand on her arm, who had told her the channel was held on both sides, as if she did not already know. Doyle walked to the edge of the cut and looked out at the dark water and did not move for a long time. When he finally turned, his face was the face of a man revising something he had held as settled. I know what I said 3 days before that night. I said it loud, and I said it where she could hear it, and I have not said anything like it since. Not about her, not about any of them. Some corrections come without an argument. The river just delivers them, and you either receive them honestly or you don't. She ran reconnaissance on the north bend before first light, as she said she would. Nobody questioned her about it.